What are y'all's thoughts on using chemical fertilizer or poultry litter to increase dry matter production and increase the overall stocking rate in conjunction with mob grazing? Yeah, so that's a really good one. A lot to it.
That's like a whole topic in and of itself.
Yeah.
We can do a little like highlight reel of just initial snapshot thoughts of that kind of stuff.
You want to start?
I would say you need to be careful with fertilizers, with synthetic fertilizers in general.
Even poultry litter.
Even poultry litter you have to be careful with because it's well, I'll address the poultry litter thing in a second because it's sort of a separate class in some ways, even though there's some similarities. But with synthetic fertilizers, you just have to be so careful because you're seriously upending any sort of biological ecosystem function that's going on in that soil, in that top couple inches of that organic matter. All those microbes and earthworms and nematodes and fungi and symbiotic bacteria and plant root nodules and stuff like that. All of that has this balance that you're trying to develop to build soil and to increase fertility. And once you start adding synthetics into that mix, it's very difficult to fully comprehend what's going on as far as altering that balance. And what Greg will say is there are certain situations where it might make sense to use a synthetic fertilizer to get yourself going, and then not be married to it, and then just carry on with your normal grazing practices and supplementing hay.
Because if you don't have anything out there to work with, you'd have no or very little carbon or biomass out there. That fertilizer is going to give you that jump to then get the carbon back on the ground and get that cycle started.
But I would this is me speaking from my own experience. This is take for what it's worth. A 2-year intern versus a 20-year expert. You know what I mean? So just putting that out there. But I would still be extremely hesitant to use synthetic fertilizers because I think it's going to hurt you long term. As far as the health and biological processes, I think there's other ways to go about it. I think figuring out ways that you could utilize different kinds of organic matter. Yeah, exactly. Like poultry litter potentially, although you got to be careful with that depending on where you're sourcing it from, because it could be chock full of antibiotics and all sorts of nasty stuff if it's from a conventional poultry house.
Wormers and stuff that kill your soil.
So you just got to be aware of that. It's also hot, meaning it's very high in nitrogen.
And sometimes, that's just bedding, and so a lot of times you'll have dead chickens that are mixed in it, dry feathers, all kinds of stuff. So going into that, you need to be aware that that might be what you're spreading out, which that's going to decompose too. It might be unsightly for a little while.
But I'd just start looking at alternative methods of using, maybe stealing some ideas from the biodynamic side of things. Maybe using.
There's someone using milk.
Spraying raw milk on stuff.
Pasture.
Although
Greg didn't find
any difference, but some people have found a difference if you can source that kind of stuff, which is hard to source. Hard to get a dairy that's okay with just shipping off.
Because there's a lot
of red tape in order to get that done.
If they get caught, there's big no-no for them.
I don't really know the details about what's legal and what's not legal, so I'm not going to recommend
any of that. It's probably depending on the state.
Or obviously composts are difficult to come by, but you just never know what kind of situation you got. Maybe you've got municipal composting. Maybe your town or your city or whatever does composting, and they want somewhere to offload it. Maybe you could cut a deal with them to take X number of tons of compost and spread that.
That would be awesome.
That would be incredible if you could source that. But
you're using the community's waste.
Yeah, exactly.
Super cool. So then grow food for the community.
Yeah, so it's
tying in the cycle.
It's that kind of stuff you got to start thinking about, because there's a lot of other ways that you can get microbial activity and increase soil organic matter and that kind of stuff, where you're boosting that ecosystem as opposed to just putting a synthetic salt, so to speak, on the land, which is just incredibly artificial in the scope of that biological system. So anyway, it's a rant, and we could go into a whole topic about that. And I'm reading a book on it right now, so that's why I've been thinking about it. It's on my mind. But anyway,
I was saying, you were saying stuff. I was like, I haven't heard you say that before.
Yeah, so
that's cool.
Anyway,
Right.
But we can get
discussion
before. But again, it's just one man's opinion. You know, I could be barking up the wrong tree, but I don't know. Leave an idea in the comments below, and we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? So anyway.
All right, I got a really interesting question.
Let's hear it.